Welcome to Simply Explained English. I am Lisa.
And I'm Eric. Do you want to improve your English easily? If so, you're in the right place.
So let's get started and make English easy. So Eric, what are the words today?
The first word today is attentive. Then we will continue with awkward. And in return, for. Then have to do with something. And the final one is so far, so good.
Okay, let's start with the first word.
The first word is attentive.
Attentive.
Attentive is an adjective that means paying close attention to something or someone and being careful to listen or watch.
When we say someone is attentive, we mean they are focusing and listening carefully.
Exactly. Let me give an example sentence. The students were very attentive during the interesting science lesson. It means that the students listened carefully and paid close attention to the science lesson. Now it's your turn, Lisa. Can you give us another example?
Sure. The waiter was attentive to the customer's needs during the meal. It means that the waiter carefully watched and listened to what the customers wanted during their meal.
That's right. Now, let's talk about how to use this word. We often use attentive with the preposition to, like in my example, attentive to the customer's needs.
Good point, Eric. Now let's hear a short dialogue using the word attentive.
Your son, Tom, is a pleasure to have in class.
Really? That's good to hear.
Yes, he's always very attentive during lessons.
I'm glad to hear he's attentive. He sometimes struggles to focus at home.
Well, he's one of my most attentive students. He always listens carefully.
That was a good example, Lisa. It shows how we use attentive to describe someone who listens and focuses well.
Yes. And it also shows that being attentive is important in school and for learning. So now we've heard attentive in a conversation. Let's talk a little about how this word is used. Eric, what would you say about attentive? Is it a common word?
I think it's common in everyday speech, especially when talking about school, work, or being polite. It's a bit more formal than saying someone is just paying attention.
I agree. You'll often hear people say someone is attentive, like a waiter in a restaurant who makes sure everything is perfect for the guests. It's a polite and positive word.
Right. You could say, the waiter was very attentive, or she was an attentive listener. It's a great word to use when you want to show someone is being very careful and considerate.
Exactly. Well, I think we've covered attentive pretty well. Shall we move on to our next word?
Yes, let's do that. Remember, listeners, being attentive while learning English will help you improve faster.
Great reminder, Eric. Okay, what is the next word?
The next word is awkward.
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 Eric, can you tell us what awkward means?
Sure, Lisa. Awkward is an adjective. It means feeling uncomfortable or not knowing what to do in a situation. You can feel awkward when you don't know what to say or how to act.
Sometimes when we don't know how to behave or what to say, we feel awkward.
Let's use it in a sentence. My sentence is, there was an awkward silence after John told a bad joke. It means that there was an uncomfortable or embarrassing quiet moment after John's joke.
Great example, Eric. Here's my sentence. It was awkward when I dropped my phone during the meeting. It means that I felt uncomfortable because everyone was looking at me when I dropped my phone. It was a little embarrassing.
Okay, here's an example dialogue using the word awkward.
Did you have a good time at the party?
Not really.
I felt awkward because I didn't know anyone.
Oh no, that's awkward. Next time I'll introduce you to more people.
Thanks, that would help. I hate feeling awkward in big groups.
As you can see, both Sarah and John used the word awkward in the conversation. John felt uncomfortable at the party because he didn't know anyone.
Now, let's have a short conversation about the word. Eric, do you think awkward is a common word?
Yes, I think it's very common, especially when talking about social situations. Many people feel awkward when they don't know others at an event or when something embarrassing happens.
I agree. Would you say it's formal or informal?
I think it's more informal. We use it a lot in everyday conversation, like when we're talking with friends or family.
Exactly. You wouldn't really use it in a formal report or essay, but it's perfect for casual conversations. Also, do you think we can use awkward to describe both people and situations?
Yes, you can say, I am feeling awkward, or the situation is awkward. Both are correct.
That's a good point. So, remember, awkward is a useful word for describing uncomfortable situations or feelings, and it's used mostly in informal contexts.
Good summary, Lisa. Well, that wraps up our second word, awkward, for today.
Okay. Well, what is the next word, Eric?
The next word is in return for.
In return for.
In return for. This phrase is used when someone does something and you do something back for them. It shows an exchange. One action happens because of another.
That's right. When we say in return for, we do something for someone. And they do something else for us in turn. Let's give 2 example sentences now to understand it better. Eric, what's your example?
Here's my example. He gave me a ride to work in return for helping him with his homework. It means that he drove you to work because you helped him with his homework earlier. Lisa, can you give us another example?
Sure. Here's mine. She gave me her notes, and I bought her a coffee in return. It means that she helped me by giving me her notes, and I did something nice back for her. I bought her coffee in return.
Now, let's talk about how to use this phrase. We can use in return alone or in return for, followed by a noun or ing form.
Good grammar point, Eric. Now, let's hear a short dialogue using the phrase in return.
Thank you for watering my plants while I was on vacation, Tom.
You're welcome, Mrs. Brown. It was no trouble at all.
I'd like to do something for you in return. How about I bake you a pie?
Oh, that's very kind of you.
It's the least I can do in return for your help.
Well, in that case, I'd love a pie. Thank you.
That was a good example, Lisa. It shows that in return can be used both with and without for in a sentence. Like in the dialogue, I'd like to do something for you, in return or in return for your help.
Good explanation. So, Eric, do you think in return is a common phrase in English?
Yes, it's quite common. People use it often when they're talking about doing nice things for each other.
Yeah, I agree. Is it more formal or informal?
I'd say it's neutral. We can use it in casual conversations with friends and in more formal situations. And I think it's an important phrase for English learners to know because it helps learners express the idea of giving back or saying thank you with actions.
That's right, Eric. It's a key phrase for talking about social interactions and being polite. Okay, well, I think we've covered in return for pretty well. Shall we move on to our next word?
Yes, let's do that, Lisa. The next word is have to do with something.
Have to do with something.
Have to do with something. Have to do with something is an idiom. It means one thing is related to or connected with another thing. It is used when we talk about a connection between two things.
Yes, for example, if something has to do with another thing, it means there is a relationship between them.
Exactly. Now let's give some example sentences. I'll go first.
Sure, go ahead, Eric.
Here's my sentence. Her bad mood has to do with the long day she had at work. It means that she was in a bad mood because she had a difficult and tiring day at work. One thing, her mood, has to do with the other thing, the long day at work.
Great example. Here's mine. The meeting has to do with the new project we're starting next month. This means that the meeting is about the new project. The topic of the meeting has to do with the new project.
Right. Now, let's hear a short dialogue to show how it's used in conversation.
Do you know why we're having this meeting today?
I think it has to do with the new project we're starting soon.
Oh, that makes sense. I thought it had to do with budget cuts.
In the dialogue, Sarah and Tom use has to do with to talk about why they are having a meeting.
Yes, and Sarah found out the meeting had to do with the new project.
So, Eric, do you think have to do with is a common phrase in English?
Oh, definitely. It's very common in both formal and informal situations. You'll hear it in everyday conversation, at work, and even in news or articles.
I agree. Would you say it's formal or informal, Eric?
I'd say it's more informal. You hear it a lot when people are talking casually, but you can also use it in work settings. It's not super formal, but it's not too casual either.
It's a really helpful phrase because it's so flexible. You can use it in many different contexts, and it works well when you're trying to explain connections between things.
Exactly. So remember, when you want to talk about how one thing is connected or related to another, you can say it has to do with that thing.
Well, we have reached the last word of today. Can you tell us the last word, Eric?
Sure, Lisa. The last word today is so far, so good.
So far, so good.
So far, so good is an idiom. It's used to say that things are going well up to now or that there hasn't been any problem yet.
When we say so far, so good, we mean everything is okay until this point in time.
Exactly. Let's give some example sentences to show how it's used. Here's my sentence. We've been driving for 2 hours, and so far, so good. No traffic. It means that for the last 2 hours of driving, everything has been going smoothly. There haven't been any problems like traffic jams, so I say so far, so good. Now it's your turn, Lisa.
Here's my example. How's your new job? So far, so good. I like my coworkers and the work is interesting. It means that, up to this point, the new job is going well, and there are no complaints or issues. Now, let's hear a short dialogue using the phrase, so far, so good.
How's your science project coming along, Tom?
So far, so good, Mrs. Johnson. I finished the research part.
That's great to hear. Any challenges?
Not yet. So far, so good with everything.
Excellent. Keep up the good work.
That was a good example. It shows how we use this phrase to give a positive update on a situation.
Yes, and it also shows that so far so good can be used multiple times in a conversation.
Absolutely. So, Eric, do you think so far so good is a common phrase in English?
Yes, it's very common. People use it often when talking about ongoing situations or projects.
Is it more informal?
I'd say it's quite informal. We use it a lot in casual conversations, but it might not be suitable for very formal writing.
Good point. Is there anything you would add, Eric?
Yes, Lisa, It's really easy to use in different contexts. You can say it about your work, a trip, or even how you're feeling during the day. It's simpler than saying, everything is going well until now.
Thank you for your short summary, Eric. Well, I think we've reached the end of our today's podcast. We hope you found today's episode helpful.
Thanks for listening. Keep practicing your English and stay tuned.
Bye for now.